Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Today, we're not going to be doing serious news. It's Friday. And on Friday, I like to go through my week's Twitter feed, generally engaging in the juvenile behaviour of ruthlessly mocking the brain-dead, sparrow-boned soy boys that constantly advocate the wrong thing in every situation. So we'll start off with this one, shall we? And yes, you are seeing that correctly. Your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. We're starting off with what appears to be a crusty homeless foreigner showing you his rusty sheriff's badge on public transport. Yeah, and trust me, it all goes downhill from here. Right, this one's from Nick Dixon. More footage of the English beginning to hate. As you might imagine, I can't show you this video because we can't have any fun on this platform. But suffice it to say, a crusty third world man fully exposes himself and walks around on the train for a prolonged period of time, showing all and sundry his knotted balloon and perhaps more importantly, flashing his meat and two veg to numerous children and innocent women who simply want to go about the business without being flashed by a hairy, scary young man with a big floppy one. Okay, I don't think it's controversial to say that the trains were better when you didn't see a crusty hobo's bell end on the way to work. I've just put that out there. Needless to say, some red-blooded Englishmen step in and forcibly remove him from the train. This made me laugh, because when I was a lad, obviously I'm in my 40s, so my dad used to administer corporal punishment when I deserved it because it's normal, right? Or it certainly was back in the day. And this made me laugh because it reminded me of one time when I was particularly cheeky to my mum. And it was when she was bad at the time and I was just taking the piss out of her. I was about 8 and I remember my dad running down the stairs, physically grabbing me by my feet, lifting me off the floor, pulling my trousers down and then lashing my bare bum cheeks with a flip-flop and then dropping me on my head. And it made me think of that moment because if I come home on my next trip to the UK and I see a single rusty sheriff's badge on public transport, I'm going to be redoing that in reverse. Yeah, because I'm going to grip one of these no-good parasites and then forcibly pull the trousers up. So, shades of my youth there. But I don't think it's controversial to not want to see a big floppy chopper on the way to work. But apparently, raving lunatics think this is totally fine. It isn't. No, we get nothing off these people at all. Nothing. And on top of everything else, getting robbed, getting diddled, paying for all the food and clothing, buying their council houses, paying their electric bills. On top of it all, the cherry on top of that dog shit Sundays, one of them has his bare ring piece 2 inches away from your daughter's face while you're taking her to school. Nice one. Here's a good one. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves.
She's a spastic.
Meeting members of the Puma Trackie community in her constituency, and for some reason, she rocks up wearing traditional headscarves. I love that. These lefty politicians love playing dress up, don't they? Remember when Justin Trudeau put about 6 costumes on in one day? That's what she's like. I've got her doing all sorts. Here she is in a hijab. There's construction industry Rachel. They're a bunch of raving lunatics. Anyway, here she is, once again prostrating herself, cringing, just like the ginger growler, cringing in front of these would-be voters. I love the inspiring music. Look at the clip of her. There's nothing inspiring about that woman at all. She's a human sausage. So she loves dressing up. I wonder if she does this, she goes to meet if she goes to meet a bunch of Mexicans in a restaurant, does she walk in with a sombrero and a fake mustache, kick the door in and go, ay, 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 epa, epa, andale, andale. It's preposterous. Basically, our leaders are completely unserious. What a bunch of losers. At least the ginger growler didn't go and beg for voters in front of a bunch of Taliban supporters. At least she didn't go in dressed as a blue ninja. I've got no idea what goes through their heads. Reeves hasn't got a Scooby-Doo. I wouldn't trust her to run a lemonade stand in my front garden, let alone run the economy. You're all going to be skinned in 2028. Just get used to it. Get used to it. You're going bankrupt because this moron's running the show. What else have I got? Here's a good one. Why have children been making Valentine's cards for asylum seekers? Because the parents are mentally ill. I'm just riffing. Seems like a logical hypothesis though, doesn't it?
When I'm one of the few journalists to really expose what's going on and highlight it, the slightest bit of the spotlight on them, they go into protected mode. The boroughs and city of sanctuary schemes taking places in schools, councils, wherever, they should be transparent. They're so proud of this content on the website and what they're doing. They really are very moralistic people, and yet when I'm one of the few journalists to really expose what's going on and highlight it, the slightest bit of the spotlight on them, they go into protected mode. And the worst thing about this is we can now no longer see what kind of schemes are being rolled.
Yeah, well, trust me, if you value your sanity, you don't want to see what type of schemes they're rolling out. I seen a video yesterday, I can't find it now, but there was a bloke proudly sharing footage of two 5, 6, 7-year-old girls at a park with two random big hairy African blokes sort of malingering round the benches. No, they don't have any children, they're just there. And this lefty bloke's like, oh, this is brilliant. I just see two adults nurturing two small children. It's like, really? Even in the 80s, when we didn't have hundreds of thousands of unvetted third world men roaming around the streets, even in 1985, there was such a thing as stranger danger. Oh yeah, here it is. Look at this footage. Just like random migrant men hanging around the play parks. Imagine that. In 1985, if a random middle-aged white bloke was just hanging around the play park, a small mob of chavvy teenagers, I would have been one of them, would instantly gather and start doing their civic duty, chanting things like pedo, 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 over and over again. And at the time, I thought that was a little bit of good-natured hijinks because we might get a chase. You know, I thought we were the villains, but turns out we were doing our civic duty. Yeah, we were very, very responsible 13-year-old glue sniffers because we were surprisingly prophetic. Yeah, we knew what was coming. We were trendsetters. Yeah, starting an early community policing scheme because we knew 30 years later, raving lunatics like Matthew Stadlen and Owen Jones would be advocating hairy-ass blokes hanging around the swings with other people's kids. Yeah, that's what we were doing. This is unbelievable. I remember getting told in primary school in about 1985, oh yeah, if a strange man turns up and offers to show you some puppies, don't get in the van with him. Now they must be telling them, oh, if a bloke turns up in a van, you've got to make refugees feel welcome, kids. Remember, look at these cards we've had you making. Get in the van. It's preposterous. Incidentally, this reminds me of another old Chubby Brown joke. Have you heard the story about the Jewish pervert? Pulls up in his van next to a play park, gets a bag of sweets out. Anyone want some sweets, kids? A little girl comes over and goes, oh, I'll have a sweet. He goes, oh, get in the van, have a few sweets. He jumps in the back of his van. A minute later, he's driving off. Looks in his rearview mirror. Whoa, you're not going to eat all them sweets, are you? Canada's entered recession, obviously. Obviously, Canada's entered recession because they've been voting wrong for the last decade. Listen to me, right? The whole Western world, other than America, is knackered because they're all voting for socialists. And if you're ignorant enough to vote for socialists after the last century, you deserve to be drinking rainwater for the next 5 years and eating all the ducks at your local pond, right? And mark my words, I'm putting it on the table now, right? The only country that will not be knackered in the Western world come 2028 is the United States of America. Canada, all of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, knackered. I'm telling you, I'll take anyone's money. 2028, I'll be on a beach in Florida drinking a margarita, and everybody who voted for a sparrow-born soy boy like Mark Carney or any of the rest of them, I'm telling you, the humble pot noodle is going to be as a buttered swan in 2028. You're going to have less money than the Icelandic bankers did in about 2010. But we'll see. I'm sure Justin Trudeau proved me wrong. Here's a good one. Inconvenient fact from CNN. Firearm homicide death rates by race. Look at that. Annual firearm homicide deaths among men per 100,000 per year by race and state. Louisiana's the worst on there, or Arkansas. 4.06 for whites, 42.91. It's unbelievable. And they honestly think the problem is the guns. I've got guns. Me and my missus have got one each. You can put us down for a 0 for the last 38 years. Yeah. Nice fat 0.00 if you look at us. Seems like maybe it's not the guns causing the problem. Seems like it might be something else causing the problem. Like perhaps a totally backwoods culture that promotes filling people full of holes rather than having a brief conversation with them. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. Again, solutions if you want to hear them. Sorry, boys. I'll end on this one because this is phenomenal. And I don't want to say anything nice about Robert Jenrick. Don't forget, never forget, Robert Jenrick secretly imported 200,000 swarthy Afghans. So don't ever think I'm defending Robert Jenrick. However, he's merely a self-serving sack of rats. This woman is, well, more dangerous to young women than Fred and Rosemary West. And I swear to God, I'm not making this up. She posted in response to Robert Jenrick talking about numerous surprise sex incidents that all happened at the hands of imported male diddlers, right? She reposted this video and said, I would say this is evil. Am I wrong? And I thought, well, that's very, very strange. A British human rights, energy and climate professor with KC after a name. Very, very strange to see one of them being sensible for a change. But I thought, wow, I guess a broken clock is right twice a day because this woman seems to be talking about how evil it is when foreign kiddie fiddlers come to England with the express purpose of fiddling kids. But it turns out, when you actually read into it and watch the video, he's criticising the diddlers. She's criticising him for talking about the diddlers. Yeah, honestly, I'm not making it up. So this one, Jessica Seymour KC, she should change her name. Rosemary West. Yeah, Moira Hindley still lives in the form of this despicable creature. It's unbelievable. Because think about it, Fred West, I mean, he only ensured like, what, a couple of dozen women had a bad day? This bird is literally criticising anyone that tries to stop an unending deluge of unvetted high-risk foreign men from moving to England and rogering your children. And she's devoting her time and energy into criticising anyone that wants to stop it. Apparently, she's a member of another community, which is, I don't want to talk about it other than to say, I've spent my entire life railing against hatred for people from certain communities. But when you see this openly espousing advocacy for the rights of foreign men to finger you, when you see this, you fully understand why it only takes a small proportion of movers and shakers, you know, the villains that actually commit the atrocious acts, commit the murders. It only takes a small amount of them to do it, and the rest of the people just stand by and watch. You know, if you tolerate this, your children will be next kind of thing. When you see people like this criticising normal men for worrying about the wives and children, and they make it their life's mission to have a pop at the people that are trying to stop it from happening, you can see why, even if you aren't a hateful or a murderous person, you can definitely see why people just pretend it wasn't happening. Because these people are sucking all motivation from me to defend them. When the useful idiots have served the purpose, and in 10 years' time, Europe is Eurabia, and it's ran by virulent, violent anti-Semites who genuinely do, unlike all of the native Europeans, who genuinely do want to actually harm people on an industrial scale. When they seize power and start doing it, the reason you're going to get shrugged shoulders and ambivalence from normal people is because of the actions of people like this. Does seeing a woman like that, a KC, bending all of her time and energy to criticise Robert Jenrick for daring to point out that the actions in Epping and Stockport and Nuneaton and Portsmouth and Lambert, and this bird spends all day having a go at Robert Jenrick. So it's completely sapping my motivation to, when the inevitable arises in 10 years' time, and this bird's been chained to the sink and beaten 3 times a day by a 68-year-old regular at Alan's Marvellous Snack Bar, at best, she's chained to the sink, at best. At worst, we know what happens at worst. You don't need me to tell you. I like to think I'd have defended them 10 years ago. But the way this is going, I think I'll put my fingers in my ears as well. Yeah, and that's a terrible thing to say, but I think it's a logical conclusion to arrive at when you have KCs sacrificing hundreds of thousands of young girls and women on the altar of political correctness. All motivation to defend them when the inevitable happens is being sapped from my body. Dare I say, we should change course if reasonable chaps like me are starting to get a little bit irked about it. All right, but we'll call it there. That's today's video. I'll be doing a live stream at 7 p.m. UK tomorrow. I'll probably give some tat away as well because I can do that now. I've got a handful of followers. Yeah, so tune in. Plenty of good stuff to talk about. Be there or be square. See you tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.